A number of Brite clients that I've had the pleasure of speaking to as CEO and founder here at Cameron James, a couple of clients have wanted to reach out and kind of talk to the CEO of the company, just to find out if we're a good bunch here at Cameron James. What I've had a lot of people talking about is how they're very disgruntled with their existing trustee. They feel unhappy, they feel acrimonious, they want to get out and whatnot. So in today's video, we're going to be running through what a change of trustee involves. And to do that, I'm going to be bringing on to call our senior advisor, Jonathan, who's the encyclopedia on all matters Brite Advisors. Good morning to you, John.
Morning, Dom.
All right, we're going to get straight into it. So John, you've spoken with a lot of Brite clients as well, or Brite Advisor clients, I should say. Would you say the majority of people are a bit pissed off and annoyed at their existing trustee? And for the purpose of today's video, just give us a breakdown, please.
That might be a bit of an understatement. Yes. Is all the anger and frustration aimed at these trustees, warranted? Probably not, but completely understandable. A lot of it definitely is. Some of it is, sort of outside of their purview. But yeah, absolutely, there is a deep sort of underlying frustration. Actually, some of it's not that underlying. Some of it's pretty out in the open, to be fair to them. But no, certainly, I'd say, in general, most people are not particularly happy with their current trustee for a myriad reasons.
Yeah, and I think I was actually speaking to a client the other day, and she was saying she's with All Trust now, and she was saying, I email, I don't hear anything back. She was comparing it to, she has a GIA account or a trust with Fisher Investments, and Fisher respond, within 5 minutes or whatever. I haven't heard back from All Trust. And it was like, but actually, if you go to the All Trust website, they have an entire section which is providing updates and talking about things. So I think sometimes for clients, they just kind of like, so much has happened and they see the name of the trustee. They obviously assume that the trustee has done something wrong or the trustee is a problem, which isn't always the case. In some of the cases, obviously it is. But from the other side of the coin, like we see this a lot. Like if you go and look at, say, for example, some trustees, particularly in the non-UK resident market, if you go and have a look at, say, their Google review pages, you will see clients making complaints about like, I had terrible performance with XYZ International SIPP. They're rubbish. My portfolio grew by 4% or whatever over 3 years or whatever it is, 5 years. And I'm obviously thinking, well, actually, the SIPP provider just provides the FCA regulated platform. You took financial advice from a financial advisor who was quite clearly rubbish at their job, in my opinion, to have such poor returns over a 3 to 5 year period. But not that I'm against you clients. I completely understand why you might be annoyed with your trustee. John, I'm sure you've come across that in the past as well, where sort of trustees are taking the blame, so to speak, for the reckless advice given by financial advisors.
No, absolutely. And, you sort of, they're passing the buck, the other advisors or whatever is passing the buck onto the provider, it's their fault, or a bit like, the high fees of these offshore bonds or, your bond's really expensive. It's like, no, it was expensive because there was a commission, fundamentally. I read reviews or I see reviews or I see comments on, and this isn't necessarily particularly, directly relevant to Brite, who obviously have very genuine concerns around due diligence and whatnot. But just in general, when you sort of like, for future, when you're looking at due diligence on new prospective platforms or investments, a lot of it is, I've had rubbish investments or I never made any money. And it's like, well, yeah, that's because either you made bad investments or your advisor made bad investments. The trustee has an obligation to make sure you're allowed to have those investments and you didn't invest in, any scams or anything like that. But, you picking the wrong funds or you picking the wrong countries to invest in or you picking the wrong financial advisor to invest in, as long as that advisor was regulated and qualified, there's little you can do or really complain about. And it's certainly not the trustee's direct fault. The complaint is, I'm sure you have other reasons to complain about them, but the lack of investment growth is not one of them.
Yeah, and actually, ironically, in the Brite situation, lack of investment growth per se isn't necessarily one of the problems. I mean, we were looking at the receivership report, and even since it came out, I think it's a 31 or something % growth because they had the money invested as it should have been. But anyway, John, on to the point then. So if people are looking to change trustee, what's the general process at the moment of changing clients and the trustee, getting them somewhere new? How does that work with the money that's hopefully going to be pending? Tranche 1, we could refer to it in January 2026, if that happens. And then obviously the Tranche 2 of capital, which potentially comes at a later point in time. How would somebody move trustee or not move trustee in the middle of there being sort of multiple payments going around?
Yeah, so there are direct platform clients, but they're sort of separate. So I'll sort of focus on the two main, which is of course SIP providers. UK SIPs, those with a UK SIP, and then those with a QROPS. Most of them being in Malta, but a fair few being in Gibraltar. So I'll start with the QROPS first. Now, QROPS typically have much more sort of flexibility in the fact that they're not subject to a lot of these old draconian laws and restrictions around transfers and partial transfers that UK pensions are, which we'll bring up in the second point. So those who are in a QROPS now, ostensibly, there's no reason why you can't change trustee to a quote unquote better provider. Maybe that's a provider, better regarded, or your advisor thinks better, or hasn't been caught up so much in this Brite debacle or other similar situations or thereof. So, if you've got a QROPS, there is in theory nothing to stop you changing trustee to someone you prefer, getting that all done and dusted, all the assets being re-rated or reassigned over to the trustee. Because the thing with a QROPS is there is no sort of integrated QROPS. A QROPS is purely just a pension wrapper. They will take assets, from anywhere as long as they meet certain criteria or whatnot. So, we've confirmed with our preferred provider, which is, Praxis Malta, that they would take over these assets now that, ostensibly they're going to be released in January or so. So, you can go through it, look where you are now, see what the options are. You got to, do this with a financial advisor. They will look at your options, advise what you should be doing, which might be a transfer, why that is, what's the rationale, how much does it cost, what are the benefits do I gain, etc. So that can be done. And then of course there's obviously the reinvestment, how it's going to do, what platform you're going to reinvest in, whether that's an FCA regulated platform, maybe it's an offshore platform because you've got certain tax needs or requirements or reporting or restrictions or whatever it may be. Every situation is unique, so there is no homogenous one size fits all. From a platform point of view, but certainly from a trustee point of view, it's definitely the case that a lot of people, especially given the comments that people have provided about their existing trustee and what went on, even with perhaps those with trustees with new ownership or whatnot, aren't particularly comfortable or happy. And it's a good way to sort of also draw a line under it and then start afresh.
Yeah, understood. And I think that obviously we have to remember that the trustee's obligation is to obviously look after its members, and this is where the weird line becomes between trustee, financial advisor, and client, because the trustee is a little bit like, well, we've received signed written paperwork from the client saying they want to invest in X, Y, Z from their financial advisor, so we're going to fulfill what they've asked for, but obviously at times that wasn't necessarily the best advice that was given by the financial advisor. So here at Cameron James, I've seen a lot of reports go out now for Brite clients, for reviewing them for the team and whatnot. So yeah, get in touch with us here. You can use the calendar link below and defend a day or a time, or you could just drop us a WhatsApp, give us a call, whatever you want to do. Start the conversation, I would say. Whether you think we're a decent bunch or you want to compare us against some others, get a proper advice report from us. You'll start to see the quality of our advice and how we work. And really, you want to be in a position, I would say, over the coming weeks and months that you really need to know kind of where you're going to be going with this. Because come January time, if and when the money is released or able to be transferred, there's going to be a deluge of paperwork on these trustees, whether they be SIPs, QROPS, or people looking to transfers out, withdrawals, whatever it might be. So I would always advise get your paperwork in early with these schemes. And as we said to a lot of our Brite clients already, this isn't just about your Brite assets. Here at Cameron James, we're holistic financial planners. A lot of our clients have been frozen in Brite for some years. We've actually done other parts of their financial planning, ISAs, 401ks, whatever it be. We've helped them sort out other areas, other small little bits of financial planning before kind of like the mother load, so to speak, for the majority of their Brite asset was their largest one in their financial planning. So yeah, the model of the story is get in touch with us, find out what we can do for you, and obviously go and compare that against the market. John, what would be your final thoughts to anybody who's considering to change trustee or is worried about changing trustee, or everything that comes with a changing trustee?
Yeah, there's a bit of an elaborate process. It is a bit of a trial by error. Just because it's in theory possible doesn't mean it's going to be done in time. But also, you don't want to make any rash decisions. Getting out of a QROPS into a SIP could be a terrible decision. But for some people in some jurisdictions, it could be a great decision. As could moving from one SIP to another. If you haven't done your research or due diligence, making sure they're all compliant, they're not violating any regulatory concerns, etc. Because then you might be going out of the frying pan and into the fire. So you really do need to be making a really calm, rational, methodical decision, which is going to require, a financial advisor to review your situation and advise accordingly, especially if you're non-UK resident. We don't know of any compliant non-UK resident SIPs for non-compliant SIPs for a US advisor, US client or European client, for example, that require a financial advisor. So again, you're going to need one anyway if you want to do it all properly by the book and make sure you're all protected and regulated and insured and whatnot. So you don't want to make anything rash. Don't do anything impulsive. And now the clock is ticking. This is the first time, perhaps during the entire Brite receivership, where there is at least somewhat a sense of urgency, albeit still a few months. But yeah, definitely take stock, see where you are, voice your concerns with your advisor. It might be your concerns are misplaced, and actually where you are now is fine, and you don't need to change trustee. You might just want to, all you got to do is, put a new advisor in, put a new platform to reinvest and go from there. Because actually the concerns you have with the current trustee might not be improved very much with a new trustee, and vice versa. So, you got to make a, calm decision, get the full picture. Don't do anything impulsive.
Yeah, and as we always stress to all of our clients here at Cameron James, get in touch with our existing clients. We've had a lot of Brite clients now join Cameron James. Get in touch with them. They've literally been through exactly the same process as you. Of course, we have to ask for their permission first, but a lot of people are happy to share their number to somebody else who's kind of thinking, oh God, I've just had whatever shenanigan go on. Are Cameron James a decent bunch? Talk to our existing clients, whether they be Brite clients, non-Brite clients, to understand how we work, what our ongoing service is like. And some of them may even be happy enough to share with you what their performance has been. Of course, past performance, no guide to future performance. If somebody else has good returns, doesn't mean you're going to have good returns, but it at least gives people an understanding of, okay, Cameron James recommended me, X, Y, Z and X, Y, Z. It's the same portfolios that we use with all of our clients. We don't cherry pick the funds the night before the report and say, oh, this one looks like a good return. That's our model portfolios and philosophies that we've had for a long time here. Jonathan, thank you for your time this morning. I will let you crack on in Richmond, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much, and you too.
Thank you, Jonathan. And as always, as we say to all of our viewers and our clients, take care with the UK pension assets.